Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers and to our review of the HOKA Mafate 5. This is a max cushion trail shoe that's designed to deliver cushion and big comfort for long haul trailing. Myself and Nick have logged the requisite off-road miles to see if this lives up to its promise. So let's get into it in our HOKA Mafate 5 review. First up, some quick details then, and when it comes to stack height, we don't have the official stack, but it now has a bigger overall stack, and we've seen reports that have it ranging from 43 mils to 45 mils in the heel, or from 35 mils to 37 mils in the forefoot. What we do know is this has an 8 mil drop. It also weighs in at 11 ounces or 312 grams in my UK 8.5, US 9.5 test shoe. In the UK, it's going to set you back £170, and in the US, it's going to be $185. Let's take a closer look at what's new then with the HOKA Mafate 5, starting with the midsole where you've got a dual foam setup with a new system that's really quite interesting. That comes with a higher stack, and HOKA says the whole thing now offers more cushioning before. The midsole puts a layer of soft, springy, supercritical EVA foam directly underfoot to create a lively ride, and there's more under the heel. Then there's a layer of stabilising and impact absorbing compression moulded EVA under the forefoot. That works with a forefoot TPU plate as well to help add some control to that kind of forefoot toe off and a bit of pop, and it helps accentuate the rocker as well. Up top there's a warp knit upper that's been given an anti-fray treatment. That's to boost the durability. There's a dynamic vamp to give a bit more forefoot upper flex, a TPU cage for some extra support, a flat wrapping tongue and well padded heel collars that are quite soft all the way down into the back of the heel. You've also got gaiter attachments here if you need them. Flip them over and there is a Vibram Mega Grip outsole with 5mm lugs to provide that all important traction and durability. So in testing, I've logged around 30 miles in the HOKA Mafate 5. I was lucky enough to be out in Saint-Gervais for the HOKA Athlete Training Camp a little while back when the shoe launched, where I got in a bunch of hour-long runs on some of the UTMB trails, or the kind of trails that covered in the UTMB, while trying and failing as well to keep up with Francesco Puppi and Katarina Hartmut. That was interesting. I failed miserably, but I've done some steep climbs, I've done some technical descents, one of them in really wet, muddy conditions, 2 runs on drier trails. I've done some kind of road and rolling runnable sections too back here in the UK. I mainly put them to test on the more runnable stuff when I was back here though, hard compacted trails, sort of grass, good amount of road commute to get to those trails here as well. Now when it comes to HOKA trail shoes, I have to say I've been a long favourite of the Speed Goat. That has been sort of my go-to really if I'm doing anything basically. It's a good utility shoe, so I use it for ultra and stuff. And I still think I like the lighter, more direct feel of the Goat. But what you get from the Mafate 5 is a really good balance of cushion and energy from the supercritical foam. And that livelier foam is sort of nicely supported and controlled by the more stable kind of forefoot EVA section and the TPU plate. So despite the big stack, I did still find it controlled enough on the more tricky terrain around Chamonix, with just about enough connection with the ground when you're sort of trying to navigate the trickier downhills. There's a sort of reliability and confidence in the mid to forefoot. The same is also true, I found, when you sort of get up on your forefoot in the climbs. When you hit the tarmac on harder, flatter runnable sections and you're landing further back in the shoe, there's a bit more softness and a spring that's really sort of helping you to sort of roll through smoothly on those more compacted, easier to run sections in a way that I can see being really welcome if you're stretching your runs to many, many hours on feet. Now, however, having said that, if you land a bit further back on your heels in the descents, that supercritical foam at the rear can feel a little soft and wobbly. It's not as wild as a Tecton X3 from HOKA or shoes of that ilk, but it wasn't as reliable as a Speed Goat. So some of that kind of stability and control does go if you're landing further back on the steep descents. On my more runnable efforts, the Mafate 5 moved well, smooth, lots of cushion, a good dollop of energy, all good if you don't mind a bit more weight in the shoe. I think faster runners out there or anyone taking on shorter distances might want something lighter and a bit more agile from their sort of race shoe. You know, this is a big shoe, and I'd likely reach for something a bit more stripped back for myself, even if I was going shorter and faster on really attackable sort of efforts. But for a 12-hour plod over the South Downs here in the UK, or a big long forest ultra on runnable stuff, even maybe a longer coastal run, I would happily lace up the Mafate 5 for that extra bit of cushion and comfort. And I also think it has plenty of mixed terrain sort of ultra potential in a way that's a bit more forgiving than you might get from a speed goat. Now, I also got to test the grip on some of that really wet, steep UTMB terrain, and that was a real challenge for what essentially me is like a flatland boy. And I found the grip held up really well in some quite testing conditions, and I had quite a lot of confidence in it, even though I didn't have it in myself necessarily. And overall, the comfort on the foot was good too for this shoe. My only real concern from my tests was a bit of toe rubbing up against the end, but only I had it on one foot. But it is a bit of a red flag for me then when you go back to thinking about whether or not you had this in mind for an ultra, and the sizing may come into sort of focus there, where going half a size up might fix it, but I'm not sure if that would lose the locked in feel through the midfoot and the heel, which really adds to that feeling of control in the shoe that I like.
So I've run around 50k in the HOKA Mafate 5, using it exclusively pretty much in my local forest as well as the road to and from there, on a mix of forest trails, some narrow stuff, some rooty stuff, some pretty well-groomed paths, some forest roads, and it's all been quite dry. We've actually not had a lot of rain here recently in the UK, so I haven't tested any real mud. So what I've been more looking at is how it feels in terms of comfort and at different paces on the run in the forest. And comfort is certainly the key feature of the Mafate 5. Like, it is built to be used for very long runs with lots of comfort on the foot and a real feeling of security, and that's what I got from the shoe. You've got a big wide landing zone here. It does give you that feeling of security. Like I say, when you're running downhill or hitting uneven ground, you are getting good traction from the outsole and a good comfortable base to land on when you are running in the shoe. Lots of cushioning, obviously, which gives you that nice element of protection. At the top of the upper feels quite protective as well. I kicked a rock the other day on a run in it, and it was okay. Still hurt a little bit. You don't kick rocks in any shoe, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been, I guess. And yeah, you are getting, I feel almost like a comfort blanket for your foot in terms of this is going to grip well. You are going to get lots of protection. You are going to be protected on the top of your foot as well, and it can handle very long distances for sure if you are moving along at that kind of slower ultra speed, when you are just looking to get through a very long run rather than necessarily going hell for leather trying to set a time. The trade-off for all this is that it is a pretty big and heavy shoe, and it does feel like that. It doesn't feel very nimble and agile. Like, it's not that bad. Actually, it runs a little bit lighter than it is. You can get into a nice rhythm in the Mafate 5 when you're on runnable ground, I think, and it's not the super slow shoe, but if you are hitting twisting technical stuff, you're going to get a lot of comfort, protection, you're going to get a nice safe landing, but it isn't very nimble. It's not a shoe that gives you a very nippy and, like I say, agile feeling when you are on that kind of terrain. And, if you're looking at running fast times on trail races that maybe aren't so long, this wouldn't be the shoe I'd pick for it. It doesn't really have a lot of get up and go about it. The midsole foam used is comfortable, protective, but not very lively on the foot. It's not like it's giving you a whole load of amount of response, and it's obviously dampened a bit by the fact you've got that quite thick outsole on the bottom of the shoe as well. So yeah, it was a shoe I enjoyed cruising in, not one I'd pick up the pace in, and I think it is one that, even if you're looking at cruising fairly short distances on the trail, I think it feels like it's a bit of overkill. It is ultra focused. I do think if you're not doing those kind of massive distances, it might not be one that would really do the job as well as other shoes.
Verdict then, and I am offering this up as someone who is new to the most recent Mafates, and I know the changes to this shoe divide opinion for some of the fans of the originals or the older models. But for me, I think the Mafate 5 delivers on HOKA's promise of a plush, comfortable ride that works over long distances, can handle plenty of unpredictable terrain. It's definitely a capable long hauler with quite a surprising versatility for a bigger stack trail shoe. That dual foam setup feels effective at giving you control butt cushioning. It's got that kind of nice balance to it. It sort of works in both ways, and I like how the ride sort of switches depending on the terrain that you're running. So it can work on the road, but it also sort of works on the trail as well. Comfort has been good. It runs lighter than it looks it might do on the foot. And if you're looking for something that has a bit more cushion than a speed goat, but doesn't sacrifice all of the ground feel and the connected control, and is not too wild, then this might be an interesting choice. I can certainly see myself logging some longer hours in it. That said, it may not be the perfect pick for runners who need or prefer lightweight speed, a more minimal feel, the highest level of ground contact and ground feel, or that top level of agility, because it is a bigger shoe and you are sacrificing some of that for the cushion overall. There are other shoes that I think you can get that from. The Speedgoat will definitely offer a bit more of that. I really like the new Asics Fuji Speed 6, I think. No, it was a Fuji Light 6. I get those two shoes mixed up. That one gives a bit more agility.
So my verdict on the HOKA Mafate 5. This is a comfortable protective shoe with good grip on mixed terrain. I do think it will do a good job at the purpose it seems to be set out for, which is for very, very long ultra distance runs on technical terrain, on mixed terrain, at slower speeds. I'd say, like, if you are someone who's really revving up and going after those distances and racing very hard, there are really good ultra distance racing shoes out there now that offer loads of protection, things like the HOKA Tecton X3, which aren't as stable and necessarily as comfortable perhaps as the Mafate 5, but are still very comfortable, I think, and built a bit more for speed over those long distances with more impressive foams in the midsole, that kind of thing. This is a shoe that maybe you could use for very long training runs, alongside a race like that, or, like I say, if you are someone who's doing these ultra distances and looking really for just maximum comfort and support and protection on those runs. And I think it will do a job of that. That's pretty good. That said, though, I do think it is pretty expensive for that run. This is just essentially a big, cushioned, pretty standard trail running shoe. I don't think there's anything particularly exceptional about it, and you're asking for quite a high price here. I think it's a bit out of step with what the Mafate was in past models as well. Like, I've always had that shoe fixed in my mind as a nimbler, more aggressive shoe, and this isn't that. This is a shoe built for like slow paces in long ultras or even fast hiking, that kind of thing, which it does a good job at, but I'm not sure you necessarily need to pay £170 to get a shoe that does that job. So while it was enjoyable enough for cruising around in the forest, the Mafate 5 isn't really my cup of tea, and I think unless you're doing those, like I say, ultra long distance runs, it's overkill, both in terms of the amount of shoe you have here, in terms of the weight and level of cushioning and protectiveness you have here, and also the price, which is, I think, just a bit high for what the shoe is. So yeah, I think it will do the job it's set out to pretty well, but I think the Mafate 5 is probably a fairly niche shoe, and while it's comfortable and enjoyable enough, I think there are other HOKA shoes that will suit most runners better, things like the Speedgo, which are a bit more versatile and lightweight and comfortable and a bit cheaper as well, or even the Challenger 8 if you're looking for a road to trail shoe that's got a softer ride. It's not suited for technical trails like the Mafate 5 is, but again, unless you're going out with those in mind, the idea of going to these mountainous tracks, doing these very long events, I think there's going to be other shoes that will serve you probably a bit better for less. When it comes to fit of the HOKA Mafate 5, I've got my normal running shoe size here, which is a UK 9. That's a US 9.5 for HOKA, and I had a really good fit. It was very comfortable around the heel and midfoot, a nice secure hold without feeling oppressive at all. There's, I think, a good amount of padding at the back of the shoe. Like, even though this is built for long distance comfort, HOKA haven't gone overboard and chucked loads and loads of padding on the tongue and collar, so it still feels quite breathable whilst being comfortable when you slip the shoe on. Good amount of room in the toe box. You obviously got quite a lot of protection around there, so you do want a bit of space, because if your toes start hitting the front of that, it won't be that comfortable. Like, I haven't gone on any super long runs in the shoes, but I haven't had any problems when I've been running down hills or anything like that. So yeah, all round the fit was good for me in my normal size with the Mafate 5.
So let's give you a quick word on fit then, and I'm going to start further back the shoe, because across the midfoot here, this lacing structure works really well for me. I get good hold across the top of the foot. This whole section here feels really well held. It's really secure. The heel collars give ample padding. I don't get any slipping there either. All of that dials in. It's secure. There was no movement or unwanted movement on the ups or the downs. So this whole back section is really good. Sometimes with HOKA shoes, everything can feel a bit cramped if I'm going in a UK 8.5. Sometimes I feel like I have to kind of half a size up, but with these, that bit is absolutely fine. I think it's kind of helped. There is an amount of flex here with this kind of dynamic vamp, this sort of stretchy bit of almost like neoprene, which enables you to have a bit more flex just at the back of the toes. Big thing for me to note on fit though is when you come into the toe box. So I have got probably like half a thumb's width just about of clearance towards the end. Obviously you've got this kind of structure here with the overlays, which keeps the top of the shoe largely away from the toes. But I did have some of my toes on the right foot here butting up against the end when I did some of the sort of steeper downs, and it happened more over time, and it did make me think that if I was thinking about taking these shoes into ultra territory, that would be a bit of a concern for me. But there is a reasonable amount of wiggle room. You can see there's a bit of flex in there in the toe box. So I do worry if I sort of went half a size up that all of this would become a little bit too baggy and loose, from giving me that security that I think really helps this shoe have a bit of control. But that is just one word to watch. I think if you're going to go ultra and you've got sort of ever have trouble with your toes butting up against the end, I did get experience of that on some of the runs, so that is one consideration. So there you have it. That has been our review of the HOKA Mafate 5. Hope you found it useful. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give us a like if you did. Hit us up in the comments if you have any questions. Do the usual. If you're not a subscribed member of the channel, do that for us. It really helps us keep making the reviews if you show us your support. If you're looking for alternative trail shoes, I'm going to pop a video up on the channel now that you should go and watch. This is a good shoe that I really enjoy. Otherwise, as ever, thank you very much for stopping by and spending time with us. And until next time, happy running, people.